Welcome back to Light the Fuse. And, we're just here. We're hanging out. We had a little change of plans, but you know what? It's kind of in the tradition of Mission Impossible. You got to just go with the flow. You got to, you got to be able to pivot. You got to be able to make it work.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what we're doing today, right?
Absolutely. When you've studied this franchise long enough, you know that things don't always go to plan, and you've got to pivot and figure it out. And so we were going to do this Patreon preview during the holidays, and now we're bumping it up a few weeks, and we're here now to give you a little, anybody who's not signed up for the Patreon, it's a little preview of what our Patreon episodes are like. This is an older episode that we did about our favorite Tom Cruise performances, but we wanted to give you a taste, and we've got something we're working on that's potentially very exciting that was going to be this week, and hopefully it'll be next week. We'll see what happens. If that happens or not, it's up to the Mission Impossible gods.
That's true. It's very true. But yeah, I think we've got some fun things planned for our Patreon as well. So, if you like this, if you're intrigued, please think about signing up. It really does help us out and powers this show. And you know what else powers this show, Charles, are our sponsors. And I just want to give a shout out right now to Jeremy Dillon and his podcast, My Favorite Album. And he wants me to tell you, Charles, and everybody else about the Better Call Saul episodes that he's got up right now. Also, John B., Elvis Ripley, and Suchet. So these people, we could not do it without them. It makes this Patreon possible and makes the main show possible. Thank you guys so much. And should we just get into it, Charles?
Yeah, I guess so. Again, I want to tell everybody, please, to sign up for our Patreon. It really supports the show. It makes it possible. We couldn't be doing this show. We are very, very slowly making our money back, but we're still in the hole here a little bit. So please help us out. Support the show. You can always sign up even just for 1 month and try it out and then cancel if it's not for you. But even just that 1 month would give us a lot of support. So please consider it. It's patreon.com/lightthefuse. And enjoy today's little preview.
Alrighty, we'll be back right after. Welcome back to Light the Fuse, another Patreon edition. We're just here talking about Cruise. Isn't that right, Charles?
Yeah. Talking about Cruise.
This was a suggestion from one of our Patreon subscribers, correct?
Yes, Sonia was one of our newest Patreon subscribers. She had this idea, and it was a very good one. So we're following through on it, which is also actually I wanted to more clearly define what it is we're doing here, because I know it's like best Tom Cruise movies outside of the Mission Impossible series, but is it best or is it our favorites? I'm
going to go with favorites.
And is it and is it favorite movie or favorite performance?
I'm going to go with performance. That's the assumption I was working under.
Okay, so our favorite Tom Cruise performances outside of the Mission Impossible movies. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right, because
we can talk about the movies themselves also, but
yeah, I mean, I compiled a list of like a lot of titles, and then I was kind of like, well, this kind of fits in that better. So okay, all right, now that I know, I can sort of tailor it a little bit better. Do we want to do like our top 5?
Yeah, I think we should just go in chronological order.
Oh, okay.
To be honest, and I think one of mine is going to be earlier than any of yours.
Okay. What year is that?
Off. Are you ready? 83.
Okay, there we go. Go ahead.
Talking about Risky Business, bro.
Nice.
His performance is so good. I cannot believe it is so early in his career. I mean, he'd been working for about 3 years at this point. His first movies were in 81.
Right.
So, yeah, he's a baby in this movie, and he is so good. He's so funny. He is so anxious. It's such a different character than most of his later roles when he became Tom Cruise. And the movie, I think, is amazing. And I think you can see a lot of, it was sort of before John Hughes, and you can tell that he kind of drifted off a lot of this stuff. And yeah, I just think it's a great movie, a great performance. I love the scene where he is sitting down with the guy from Princeton, and he's sort of doing an interview in the middle of this crazy like party kind of. He's sort of turned his family house into a bordello for one night. Yeah, it's a great scene. He's hilarious, and it's just wonderful. It's a wonderful movie. So that's one of my favorite Tom Cruise performances, and one of my favorite movies of his.
That's awesome. I haven't seen that movie in years, but I mean maybe even like 10 years. But I mean obviously love that movie, and yeah, he's a star. You just like that's like, that was the moment, right, when people were like, oh, this guy's a star.
Yeah. I mean, everybody remembers the underwear
Right.
moment, obviously, but to me, there are just so many other great moments. I mean, at the end of that scene where he's with the college guy and he says, "Looks like I'm going to Illinois State." It's great. I'm paraphrasing. I don't know if that's the exact line, but he's just so full of life, and you can tell then that he's just going to have the most amazing career.
Right.
So that's one of my faves.
Nice.
So I suggest you rewatch. I rewatched it this morning just to make sure I was not barking up the wrong tree.
Really?
And I was not. So yes, yeah.
Wow.
So go ahead, Charles. Let's continue in chronological order.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna stay in the 80s, and I don't know if your next one is in the 80s as well, but this is kind of later 80s. But for me, I was gonna say Rain Man, which I think I've talked about on the show before. Yeah. I wouldn't say it's one of my favorite movies. I don't even know if I would put it in the top 5 of his best movies, even though it's a great movie. Barry Levinson directed it, and if you haven't seen it, you definitely should. Dustin Hoffman, I think won the Oscar for that movie. And I think I've talked about this on the show before, but Dustin Hoffman, I think, is obviously great, and it's a specific role. I don't know if you'd get by doing that nowadays, because I think that it would not be politically correct to make Dustin Hoffman to have Dustin Hoffman play that role, maybe, and also Dustin Hoffman's been canceled, so there's that whole other issue too. But anyway, Hoffman gets so much attention for his performance, but to me, I think Tom Cruise actually has the harder role in that movie. I think Hoffman's is the showier one, and Cruise his character is kind of a dick. Actually, just a full-on dick in the movie, and it's a redemption arc for him, and his performance is lights out. I mean, it's just fucking great, and he makes the movie. The movie works because of him, and yeah, I love it. I think whenever I think about that movie, I don't think about Dustin Hoffman. I think about Tom Cruise.
Yeah, I mean, it's so much harder to play the straight man, but even then, he has such great range. You're right. He's a dick. He's angry a lot. He's exasperated, and
he's using his brother.
It's not a showy,
it's awful
but it's
what he's for a lot of the movie what he's doing, but obviously he redeems himself by the end.
Yes. It's a great movie. I mean, I don't watch Rain Man a lot, but every time you catch it on TV or something, or see part of it, it's a really wonderfully done movie, yeah. And it was the biggest hit of 1988. Roger Rabbit was number 2. Rain Man was number 1, Rain Man was being developed at Disney beforehand, so they could have had a real comeback story there. But
how insane is that?
Yeah,
when you think about that, 1988, the highest grossing movie was Rain Man, which was like an adult drama. I miss those days. That would be really cool if that ever happened ever again. But it's and I'm just looking up the Oscar. They won Best Picture. Hoffman won Best Actor. Barry Levinson won Best Director. Screenplay by Ronald Bass and Barry Morrow. They won, and then it was nominated for cinematography. It was John Seale, nominated for art direction, and nominated for editing, and nominated for the score, which was Hans Zimmer. It's an iconic score, which is really wonderful. And insanely, Tom Cruise was not even nominated. So there's that.
Yeah, you wonder why he's not doing movies like this anymore. That's one of the reasons. All right, well, I think we're taking it to the 90s, and I think we both are going to agree on a couple of these. The first, I would say, is The Firm from 1993.
Oh, yes.
Just a great performance. I mean, again, another kind of like straight up, straight man, kind of wrong guy in the wrong place. But, there were few more hotly anticipated movies. This is the year of Jurassic Park as well, and these 2 giant literary adaptations. But the movie is so good. He is so compelling, and there was that big controversy about the ending of the movie and how it differed from the book, but you could never see him leaving his family because you just love him so much and he's so compelling. And so I think the ending of the movie fit perfectly. And I know we talk about The Firm a lot because we both really love it and have watched it recently. But yeah.
What, did he leave his family at the end of the book or something?
Yeah, I think he became like a fugitive, I believe, at the end of the... I remember this Entertainment Weekly cover from the time. Mitch does not end up in the Caribbean as in the book. He and Abley simply get in their car and drive back to Boston. So yeah, he leaves his family and is in the Caribbean.
Weird. I think the ending of the movie is perfect.
Yeah.
And great. I would agree. It's one of his best performances. I would put it in my top 5. I mean, I love that movie so much. And it's obviously, there's a fascinating alternate universe where Sidney Pollack and Tom Cruise reunite to do the first Mission Impossible movie. And what would that look like, which is also fascinating to think about. But yeah, The Firm, I think, it's a great star vehicle. It's a, that kind of adult, those kind of movies were a thing. The John Grisham kind of adaptations and stuff like that in the 90s were a big deal, and it would be cool to see those kind of movies come back as well. But he is just so great in that movie, and I love the whole cast is insanely good. Everybody in it, Gary Busey and Holly Hunter and David Strathairn and Gene Hackman. I mean, Hackman is so good, and Gene Triplehorn. It's just like, yeah, the list goes on. Everybody in it is amazing.
Another great score as well.
Yes, the score is done entirely on piano. Even when there's like percussion sounds, it's what's his name, Dave Grusini or something like that. He just is hitting the side of the piano and stuff for the whole score. It's really cool.
So that's one of your top 5s then.
Yeah. But do you want me to push on to my next favorite performance?
Push on to your next favorite, Charles.
All right, I'm going to stick in the 90s still, and God, this is really tough. So now I think I have to go with it. It's just so iconic. It's Jerry Maguire. I mean, he's so good in this movie, and it's such a wonderful film, and like him doing that kind of, it's like a romantic comedy, but it's this sort of almost epic romantic comedy. It's like, I think Cameron Crowe at his best is making movies along the lines of like Billy Wilder, and that movie totally fits in there and has some of the most iconic lines of dialogue. I mean, it's like almost on par with fucking Casablanca with the number of lines in that movie, lines of dialogue that will live forever now. From, you complete me to you had me at hello to show me the money. I think there are a couple other ones that I'm forgetting right now, but it's just, I mean, there's so many amazing moments. And I think when you see Cruise, a lot of these performances, maybe that's just Cruise in general, but from The Firm to this, Jerry Maguire, like putting Cruise at his most desperate, I think is always just so riveting to watch. And he is put at such a low point in the first act of that movie, and through the whole thing, he's like desperately hanging on to trying to make his career work, and it's just a wonderful movie and an unbelievable performance.
Yeah, it's great. And you read about how he and Cameron Crowe worked on the script together for like a year or something before they shot it. Like, he is as intrinsic to the success of the movie in every aspect as anybody else. And yeah, I mean, I think I don't love it as much as you do, but it's a great movie. And he was nominated for the Oscar at the very least, did not win, but there's that. Again, an R-rated movie is the 9th highest grossing film of 1996, right, which is, it's a miracle.
And that was a big year for him, obviously, with it being the launch of the Mission Impossible franchise as well.
Yeah, he was killing it. I'm going to rewind for a couple of years, though, in the 90s to 94, and to a movie that is unlike any other movie he's ever done and any performance he's ever done, which is Interview with the Vampire.
Yeah.
This is... It's Tom at his most fearless, I feel like, because he's never even approached any role like this before or any movie like this. And again, the Interview with a Vampire was one of the hottest books of the 90s. Anne Rice wrote it, and it went on to have many sequels and things. And, there was a great outpouring of distrust about the casting of Tom Cruise. I don't know if you remember that. It was sort of like Michael Keaton in Batman, where people just did not buy him as Lestat. And even Anne Rice, I think, said that she didn't buy it. And, you know, it ended up being amazing. And, you know, it is a hardcore R-rated kind of horror epic. And it just kicks ass. And he's so good. And the relationship between him and Brad Pitt is so funny and creepy and kind of gay. And yeah, I wish they had made more movies with him as Lestat. I think that would have been great. But as a one-off, it's pretty impressive, I gotta say. And I think that he was working that performance on a number of levels, and I just really admire a lot about what he chose to do.
Yeah. It's been years since I've watched that movie, and I really need to revisit it. But yeah, it is really unlike anything else he's done in his career.
Do another one, Tom. Not necessarily Lestat, but
yeah,
something weird like that.
All right, my next one, still in the 90s here. I'm gonna go with Magnolia. Again, you know, I mean, his character is so confident in that, and it's obviously Paul Thomas Anderson wrote that for Cruise, and his performance is electrifying. But it's also, there reaches a point of desperation that you know that he hits that is just truly wonderful to watch, and to see him on, you know, at Jason Robards' bedside. I'm not going to cry for you. You know, that whole scene where he's like trying his best to hold back tears and I'm not going to cry for you is so heartbreaking and incredible, and just brings, I mean, that movie, I think when it came out, I was really obsessed with it. And then over the years, it's a pretty weird movie that's kind of a mixed bag, and not my favorite Paul Thomas Anderson movie, but still so many great things in it. And probably the best thing in it is the Tom Cruise stuff, because he's just so incredible. And of course, our beloved father figure, Robert Elswit, shot it. And so the cinematography is incredible in that movie too. But yeah, I just, you know, Frank T.J. Mackey, I mean, that movie is so fucking quotable because of all of his insane lines of dialogue, his big speeches, and I love it when he goes and does the interview, and then obviously there's the you know, he gets confronted about his past, and he does the silent treatment and says, "I'm quietly judging you." But I love it after that too, when he comes back in and tries to go back into Frank T.J. Mackey mode, and he can't do it, and he like flips out, and he throws, you know, tosses a table over, and he's just like, I don't know. Yeah, he's so fragmented, and it's such a fucking great performance. I love that movie. I love him in that movie.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great movie. It's a great performance. He was nominated for that. I think him not winning maybe is another one of those moments where you think like his career could have gone down a completely different path had he won. I think that he was incredibly upset, and I think rightfully so that he was not nominated. But yeah, I mean, if you're picking that movie from '99, let's just get into the other '99 movie,
of
which
course,
is Eyes Wide Shut.
Yeah.
Again, a underrated performance due to its let's say highly calibrated nature. Again, he is a straight man going through this kind of nocturnal odyssey that is kicked off by him discovering a fantasy that his wife has had of a sexual encounter. It's a bizarre movie, and it's a bizarre descent, but he holds it together and is gripping, you know, the entire time. There's just long shots of him kind of walking down this sort of oddly artificial New York set, and you just cannot help but just be drawn into everything that he's doing, and you totally understand why he's doing it. And it's a pretty miraculous performance that was weirdly overlooked at the time, but I think more people have appreciated it in the years since it was out on video and DVD and streaming and stuff. And I hope that it's now part of his kind of like seminal canon of performances, because I think it's just amazing.
Yeah, it seems that, as with every Kubrick movie, people didn't really know what to make of it when it first came out, and then after a decade or two, people are like, "Wait a second, this is a masterpiece." And I know there was so much hype around that movie before it came out, and there were all these talks of like Nicole Kidman and Tom Cruise were like part of orgies or something. It was like, and then the movie turned out to be not quite what people thought it was going to be, and it ended up being really Tom Cruise's movie and his sort of odyssey, and his performance in it is so great. I mean, just there's this long, slow, like zooming in shots of him while he's, obsessing over these images in his head of the fantasy that his wife had of leaving their family and everything. And he is, it's a really amazing, subtle performance that is the kind of thing that people are not gonna catch on to, I think, at the time. But then with time, when you go back and watch it and revisit it again, I mean, I watch it around Christmas time every year. It's become one of my Christmas staples. Just like some of the most immaculate Christmas trees are like littered throughout the whole movie. The whole movie is like this weird dreamscape of things that like don't really make sense. Or like, I think Scorsese talked about it, where he was like, it's New York, but it's not New York. Like, you're like, oh, that's New York clearly, but that's not a street I've ever been on. That's not a real street. And like, why it's totally empty. Like, how could it ever be empty? And they built those sets, I think in London, and they created New York City streets just from top to bottom, and it's a beautiful looking movie, and it's just this weird dreamscape that Tom Cruise is going through, and his performance anchors the whole thing, and wouldn't work without him. And it's really wonderful, because you're with him that whole movie, and down that kind of rabbit hole. And it's that was the one that I was trying to figure out what my fifth choice was, and that was one of the options. And now that you've picked it, maybe I'll pick something else just so we can do another movie. But that his fucking performance is incredible.
Yeah, we have 20 years of his career. We gotta get at least a couple more.
I know. Well, so all right. So I was. It's really hard to pick. So I think I've picked 4 now. So I got to pick one last one, and it's really hard to pick just one, because I really kind of want to pick one of the Spielberg ones, and then there are 2 later ones that I really want to talk about too. But maybe I will just. Oh man. I don't know. It's really hard to pick between Minority Report and War of the Worlds. I think because I love both those movies so much, and War of the Worlds in particular, I have a soft spot in my heart. But you know what? I think I'm gonna go even later. I'm gonna go with Edge of Tomorrow as the final, my 5th one, because when I saw this movie, and you see the trailers, and unfortunately this movie did not become a hit, although I think it's obviously become a cult thing. People who have seen this movie love it so much, and I think the title hurt the release as well. But seeing the trailers and everything, I don't know if I knew, but going into it, and then when I saw the movie, and his character in it was unlike something I had seen him do ever, or maybe at least in ages, and the way they set up his character at the beginning as a total coward was so fascinating. I was like, oh my God, like this is ballsy. I thought, like, for Tom Cruise to do this, I mean, to allow that character to be what it was, which is like, he's like a total coward at the beginning of that movie. And obviously he goes through a journey and is no longer a coward at the end. But I think a lot of movie stars would not be okay with that. They'd want their character to be a total badass right from the beginning. And that is not what he is in Edge of Tomorrow. At the beginning of that movie, he is frightened and incompetent, and it's wonderful. I mean, I think it's been a few years since I've watched it, but I think he's sort of more like a publicity type person, right? And he is not actually a real military guy.
Yeah, I watched it a few weeks ago. Yeah, he's trying to drum up sort of public interest for this war against these creatures from outer space. Right. Yeah, and it's so great too, because he becomes a badass by dying in all of these horrible, hilarious ways too, which is so great.
Yeah. I mean, he has to have a sense of humor about himself and about the character, and it's really awesome to see. He's just so good in it, and to see where he goes, and then to that final scene when he walks up to Emily Blunt with so much confidence, and it's a really great performance.
Yes. Also, his physicality put in center stage, and he just, I mean, wearing that kind of exoskeleton. It must have been incredibly difficult, and he does it, and it's just amazing. There's no physical performer that is quite as dazzling, I think, on screen as Tom is, in especially in that movie.
Yeah.
All right, so my number 5, I'm going to take it back. I'm going to take it back to 2004. Charles, you know where I'm going with this.
I don't know if I do.
You know where I'm going with this. Talk about Nighttime Odysseys. We're talking about
Oh, how did I forget about... Oh, my gosh. How did I... Oh, yes. Okay, wonderful. Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, so, again, like Interview with the Vampire, one of his only villains.
Yeah.
He plays a killer who has arrived in L.A. and hijacks Jamie Foxx's taxi. And he is using the taxi to go around and kill all these people on this one night. I think it's tied to there's a court case or something the next day. And Jada Pinkett Smith is one of the lawyers. And this movie is just so expertly told. It's a Michael Mann movie without any bullshit. It's 2 hours on the dot. And it is just amazing. A mixture of 35 millimeter and early digital. Because there are actually 2 cinematographers credited as well. I guess one for each format. And he is just he's so cold. He's wearing this suit that makes him look kind of like a robot. It's kind of this shimmery silver suit. And his interaction with Jamie Foxx is really great, and his personality that he brings into it works so well because, like Jamie Foxx, you want to believe that he's going to actually let Fox go, and we find out through the course of the movie and through the dealings of Mark Ruffalo that Cruise has done this in other towns and left the taxi cab driver dead at the end of each night. So, it's just an amazing movie. I love this movie. It is just a pure thrill ride and one of his best performances. And I cannot believe that he did not get nominated for this either. Jamie Foxx got nominated, but not Tom Cruise. I don't get that. But yeah.
I mean, Jamie Foxx is great in that movie. He really is and deserves to be nominated. But how the fuck do you not nominate Tom Cruise? He's so good in this movie. And just down to like the Michael Mann and the way he has his characters so specifically visually realized, and Tom Cruise with that hair is so specifically a Michael Mann villain. And Tom Cruise was just on that BBC. There was a podcast that I think the interview was from a couple years ago, but they put the whole thing together in a podcast recently, and Tom Cruise told the story about how he got on Collateral, and Michael Mann asked him to play the cab driver, and Tom Cruise said, well, I want to play Vincent. So there's a whole alternate universe where Tom Cruise is actually the cab driver in that movie, and then maybe he's getting the nomination for the Oscar. But I think Cruise is so smart, and that's just amazing that his instinct was like, no, I want to play Vincent. And again, it's kind of a role unlike any other role that he's done, which I feel like we've said over and over. He's just so fucking good. And so Cruise said, I want to play Vincent. And then Michael Mann said, okay, here, let me think about it. He hung up. And then Cruise said a couple hours later, Michael Mann called him back and was like, okay, yeah, this is going to be great. You play Vincent. And Cruise is like, I don't know what Michael Mann did or thought about during those couple hours, but it made sense to him after he thought about it for a bit. And then we were off. And Cruise did all kinds of training and stuff to do the shooting and all the assassin work or whatever.
Yeah, the tactical stuff. Yeah.
It's just... I'm mad. I'm angry at myself that I forgot to bring it up. But hey, it's good. We talked about another title, so it's totally fine. He is just
Charles. I'm there to catch you. You know what I'm saying? I'm here. I mean, not physically because I can't be in the same room as you, but emotionally.
So I think we've both done 5 now.
I mean, we could talk for another. Yeah, I know. We could do another 5 movies.
I know. I mean,
I'm shocked you didn't say.
I was going to say, I wanted to give an honorable mention for his performance in Tropic Thunder, which is obviously he transformed himself yet again. And also honorable mention for A Few Good Men. His performance is amazing in that. And also Top Gun, just because it's just so fun and great and iconic. But yeah, we could talk for days about this stuff, and I would love, maybe another time we'll talk more about Minority Report and War of the Worlds, because I love those movies so much. And if it were just favorite movies,
Sure.
those two probably both would have been in my top 5.
Yeah, I mean, this guy's made a lot of good movies, and he's committed a lot of wonderful performances to film. So maybe we'll do another 5 next time or something.
Yeah.
So God knows I've got some 5 in my chamber as well, ready to go. So, Charles, thank you for chatting with me today about Tom Cruise, and we'll be back next week with something for the Patreon folks. But thank everybody so much for contributing, and please continue to do so. And if you have any ideas for any upcoming episodes, please just let us know. And we got a lot of great episodes on the regular podcast coming soon. So yeah, a lot to be excited about.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And we're back.
We're back. I have no recollection of what my top 5 favorite Tom Cruise performances were when we recorded this. I think this was a couple of years ago. And I feel like if you asked me today, it could have been another 5 because he has so many amazing performances.
Yeah, and I'll also point people to the Real Friends podcast that you and I were on, Charles, with Emily and Madison.
Yes.
They are just wonderful. And we also talked about Tom Cruise movies there with them.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That was a great chat. But you'll get more of things like this. We do weekly episodes. Every week we do a new bonus episode. We recently just did one about the re-release of Top Gun Maverick. It's back. It's coming back to theaters. I think it's actually in theaters right now as of the time of the release of this episode. For another week, and it's back in IMAX theaters, and you should go see it if you can. And we talk about that, and we talk about a lot of other things relating to movies that are in theaters now, and that's one of our latest episodes on Patreon. What other episodes have we done on Patreon? We've done a lot of really cool stuff, Drew.
Oh, we've done so many. We gave people our Halloween picks. We always go through kind of other franchises that we love. We're about to do the Terminator soon, but we've done The Predator, and what other franchises have we talked about?
Oh, we've done a lot of them. We did Jack Ryan at one point.
Yep.
We did I think we did all the Batman movies.
Yes, that's right.
Through the years, we've done a bunch of those. We also have done like breakdowns of different people's careers, of our favorite 5 performances, like this Tom Cruise one today, from actors who are in the Mission Impossible franchise. And another thing that we've been doing lately is Criterion Collection sale recommendations, because the Criterion Collection does sales at least twice a year. I know you are always memorized. You know exactly when those sales are coming out.
Oh, yeah, we got a flash sale coming up in February, Charles, so just get ready for that.
And so whenever those happen, we've been doing that lately, where we dive into recommendations we have from the Criterion Collection, because we are big fans. So yeah, please sign up for our Patreon. It's patreon.com/LightTheFuse. Sign up at the bonus content level. You'll get weekly bonus episodes. We also have higher tiers where you can join us for the monthly Zoom chat that we have with an amazing group of people, or you can be a sponsor of the show and get your name read out during episodes. So just please support our show, because it's the only way we can keep doing this, and we're so thankful, so thankful for our Patreon subscribers to make this show possible. And with that in mind, I have to give a special thank you to Eddie Santos and Nathan Lawrence. So thank you, Eddie and Nathan. I also want to give credit to our music composer, Kevin Blumenfeld, and our editor and mixer, Luke Burson. And I want to say thank you to our intern, Amber Cohen, who is actually, speaking of the Patreon, she's helping us set up a Discord for our Patreon, which we are new to Discord and we don't really quite understand it, but I guess we're setting up a Discord server for Light the Fuse with all these different subcategories or whatever they're called in Discord. We're learning that from her right now, and we're getting that set up, and it's going to be really awesome. Can't wait for that to happen. That's another thing that will be a perk for our Patreon subscribers going forward. So please sign up. And anything else, Drew?
Well, I just want to encourage people to follow us on social media while social media still exists, at Light the Fuse Pod on Instagram and Twitter. And also just to like, subscribe, rate, and review. And if you're looking for a holiday gift, Charles, I can't think of a better holiday gift than a T-shirt or a magnet or a pin from our T Public store. I mean, can you?
No, I can't think of a better gift. And we have a great great holiday sweater design that your wife Katie designed.
Yes.
That is on sale. And as of the time of the release of this episode, our TeePublic store is on sale, I believe, through the 16th of December. So if you're looking for a holiday gift, last minute holiday gift, whatever, get on it. Go to our TeePublic page. It's teepublic.com/user/LightTheFusePod. Or you can find it linked from our website, lightthefusepodcast.com, under the merch tab. And while you're on our website, also check out our show notes from our episode guide. So many great things there. And I believe that is it for us. Fingers crossed next week we'll have something very special for you. If not, we'll find something else to do that will also be special, but not as special, but it'll be great.
I love your optimism, Charles. And with that, we'll close it out, and we'll be back next week.
Thanks again for listening, everyone. Before we go, another mission, should you choose to accept it, please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And remember that you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at LightTheFusePod, and email us questions or comments at lightthefusepodcast@gmail.com. This message will self-destruct in 5 seconds.